What's up, everyone? Welcome to For the Minions. I can hear myself for some reason. Give me just a second.
Oh,
All right, that's better. I don't know why I could hear double of my own voice. I don't want to hear myself talk sometimes. So, welcome to the For the Minions, guys. I'm happy to be here with Stunt and Wangle. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. Go ahead and give a brief intro. We'll start with Stunt and go to Wangle of who you are, what content you make or do, and what game you kind of primarily play. Stunt, we'll start with you.
What's up, everybody? I'm Stunt V. I'm a partner of Paragon, the Overprime, and I play Overprime a lot more than the other games. You guys can catch me on Twitch, on Kick, and on YouTube. Stunt_V, the same for everyone.
I'm Wangle. I play mostly Predecessor. Yeah, I'm on Team Rogue, which is one of the competitive teams for this game, and yeah, you can find me on Twitch at I'm Wangle.
Perfect. Let me know, chat, if my audio is still going in and out, and we'll see what we can do on that. But guys, I want to kind of start out with just some baseline stuff about both of you, where you're at. Did both you guys play Paragon originally, or are you both new to the Parazombies?
Oh, I played Paragon. I played
Yeah,
till it closed. One of the early access and all the way up till the Paragon shut down.
I got in early enough that I had the CD physical copy of the game. Still have it somewhere in this house, I don't know, but yeah, I did play Paragon quite a lot.
Hmm. Well, and that's right, Wangle. I heard you on Predcast saying that you originally bought it for your dad, right, and then started playing it yourself too.
Yes, yes, it was. I bought it for his birthday, and then we sat down, and I was watching him play it. Neither of us knew what a MOBA was. Like, I'd grown up on console my whole life and whatever. I'd never played a MOBA before, and then saw a couple games, and I was like, this game looks cool. I don't understand it, but I want to. And then
I love
a couple years later, now I'm here.
it. Awesome. Well, that's super great. And Wangle, correct me if I'm wrong, but you also are interning or working as a game dev right now as well, and you come from a
Correct.
Game dev family.
Yes, both my parents make video games, and I currently am working on I'm interning at a VR studio. Um, I can't say too much about the game we're working
Of
on,
course,
but
yeah.
hopefully I can more soon. So
I guess my
yeah,
my main question about that in particular is, do you use Unreal Engine or are you using a proprietary engine of some kind?
we use UE4 or 5. Yeah,
Okay, perfect, awesome. Because that's knowing that you have at least some understanding of the engine is super cool. Because then
yeah,
we can kind of talk about that stuff a little bit
yeah.
more.
I haven't done too much in the engine itself. I've
Mhm.
had to use it a couple times for a couple random different tasks, but most of the time I'm like doing QA level things, so I'm like running through maps and like actually testing stuff out, see if things are broken still.
That's super cool. Awesome, man. Well, I'm glad to have you both here that talk about all of these games. But let's get into Paragon the Overprime first. And basically, the biggest thing for that coming out of them this week is that Grim is announced to be the next hero in Paragon the Overprime. They're going to do a test build. If you guys want to be part of that test build, you have to go and apply to potentially get a code for it. But kind of want to hear your guys' thoughts on, do you think Grim is a good addition to these games? How would you like to see Grim changed? What did you like or dislike about Grim back in Paragon? And Stun, we can start with you since I know Paragon the Overprime is your main game.
To be honest with you, Jelly, Grim is the only hero I never touched in any of the Parazombies, nor in Paragon. I never took the time to understand his kit. So I'm hoping in PTO it would be the first time I try him out. Uh, and as far as having him in the game, I don't know if we needed another carry. I'm not sure if PTO needed another, especially knowing that Grim has the capability of being a very overpowered character. Um, it's gonna be interesting to see how they're gonna balance him and how he's gonna feel on top of what their version of Grim is gonna look like when it comes out.
Yeah, absolutely. And Wengel, what about you? What are your kind of thoughts on Grim?
He was kind of in an awkward place back in OG Paragon because he was like the biggest ADC so easiest to hit by like a mile, and then
The
didn't
walking
have any
fridge.
kind of movement. He had one defensive ability which could block one singular enemy ability. So like if you had like a Greystone on you, it was just kind of negated. Like if
Mhm.
someone threw a thing at you, the Greystone thing was just gonna get blocked. So, and then he had that weird time where his ult was like a 30-second cooldown. You just auto-locked people off cooldown, and that doesn't seem very interactive to me either. So I don't know if they make him go kind of that caster role, or they keep him as an ADC and they make. I like having the stance, like the mini stance change on his auto attacks, but like I feel like they need to add something to his kit to. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest thing with Grim back in Paragon was he's super cool. Yes. Did he fill any roles better than anybody else in the game? Not really. Right? Like, so he always fell into this weird middle ground where it was like, yeah, well, we could play Grim, but do we really want to? No. Like, so I hope that they've done something with his kit to make sure that he's able to fit in the niche a little bit better, even if that's making him more of a mid laner or an off laner comparatively to a carry.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there was a cool level of skill that you could have with him, but maybe they need to like make his model smaller because he's just kind of the refrigerator of the game. Like people talk about like Richter and stuff being big, like big chunky characters, and he's
Yeah.
just yeah, he's massive. So I don't know if like I'm saying even for either game, for Paragon or when Predecessor add him, like maybe they need to slightly reduce his model size or something, because he just seems a little bit too. In my mind, he feels too big for
Yeah.
what he is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Grim has always been a skill-based hero, right? Compared to other Paragon heroes. You couldn't just pick up and play Grim that easy, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely needed a little bit of practice on him, from in the Paragon version, and then even in the Fault version where he had that stance switch more standard to him. Like, I think there's a lot of practice that has to go into him. He's not just a pick up and play type hero like we've seen out of so many of these other heroes. I am excited for him, but I agree with you, Stunt, that like I don't know that the game needs another carry necessarily. Like, there are so many other roles that needed more of a person in them, like jungle specifically, right? We haven't really seen a jungler come out from Paragon the Overprime in quite some time. And so I'm hopeful that maybe this will shift the meta around, especially because with his patch, they're adding in passives supposedly to every single character across the board. So we
Yeah.
should see something interesting that may shake things up a little bit to make it more and more exciting for everyone.
I
But
think what's happening. Sorry for cutting you off,
no, you're
Jelly.
good.
I think what else is happening is when Xena and Adele came out, obviously they were targeted for a solo lane, but the community ended up playing jungle with these heroes. You know what I mean? So we didn't necessarily get a jungle hero, but you ended up getting a lot more jungle gameplay from like Adele and Xena than you did from like a solo lane or something.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. Well, we can kind of wrap up Paragon the Overprime because I know there's a lot to talk about with Predecessor, especially. But I kind of want to ask you guys some similar questions to what I've been asking the last couple guests on FTM. And what do you guys think Paragon the Overprime, what sets it apart from other games in the space? And that's not even just talking about Predecessor, about MOBAs in general, and being League of Legends, Smite, Dota, anything like that. What do you think is their thing that makes people want to play that over any other established MOBA or Predecessor? And either one of you is welcome to start.
I mean, there, I guess it's the fast-paced gameplay. Like their laning phase, you don't really get that in the other MOBAs. Um, the only thing that separates, I guess, Paragon from any of the Para Zombies was that uh, they have a tendency to try and change some of the kits, right? Give you something a lot newer, and if their goal was to steer away from Paragon, I think they're hitting the nail on the head because slowly that's what they're doing. Is they if you have a nostalgia for Paragon and you want to get in there and have a feel for it, you kind of do, but it's not the Paragon we knew, not as much as you get from Predecessor.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's what makes them different.
Awesome.
Yeah, it definitely is much more fast-paced. Like, I don't know. I think there's like a lot of comparisons, obviously, because they both kind of originated from the original Paragon, and so people like to compare them. But I don't think they're that similar. I think, like, just in terms of like the laning phase, there's much more action in Paragon, and like it's less about playing the lane itself, but like you can kind of just do more at earlier into the game. Um, so I'd say it's more similar to, it's like an arena shooter with MOBA elements, kind of. Maybe something a little closer to, I forget what it was, but there was, I think, like a first-person shooter that had MOBA elements called like Battle Right or something back in the day that I would compare this game much more closely to rather than Predecessor, just in terms of like how it plays, how quick it is. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, actually, that's I think a great comparison to try and kind of give people a baseline of where they should look for this game and comparatively to like the more traditional MOBAs that we see out of Predecessor, League of Legends, Dota, all that. That battle rate is a much closer comparison. I think that's fantastic. It's not something I've thought about before either. But Wangle, we'll start with you on this one. What is something that you'd want them to add that would draw you to play the game more than you do now?
Honestly, if I'm gonna be real with you, I don't think they should be catering to people like me if they want like if they want to have like a successful game, because like I'm kind of here for like more of the MOBA elements or something. Like I uh like having like a slower pace thing. Even within Predecessor, I play slower than most Predecessor players in terms of like how I play lanes and stuff.
I mean, you are a
And I like,
gadget player, so we can't
yes.
take anything you take seriously anyway. So
Yeah. But like genuinely, I don't think that they should be like trying to take people from Predecessor, because I think Predecessor does like more of a MOBA feel, and I think they should be trying to go like full into the market of like we are fast paced, we are like not quite an arena shooter, we're like an arena shooter with extra steps added onto it, and those extra steps are cool, and then make like the arena shoot a part of it like really fun. And yeah, I don't think it's necessarily for me. I think it's a different audience, but I think if they lean into that audience, I think they can find a lot of success with this game.
cool. I love that answer. And Stunt, what about you? What's the one thing, I know you play the game more, but what's the one thing you want them to add that'd make the game more fun for you?
I think their test with ARAM was a success. The modes that they're starting to add, um, because if I want to have a quick game, or if I'm not able to get into a game because of the lack of players or anything like that, it's fun. Just jump into an ARAM or even their Murdoch Wonderland, just to have a quick game with friends, laugh and have fun.
Yeah.
I think everything else is just they're on point with their hero releases, the way they change kits and what they do. They're not afraid to take risks.
Awesome. And that's, I would agree with you. I think some of the most fun I've had in Paragon the Overprime recently was playing their Red Moon ARAM map. That we just got a bunch of buddies together, right? We all jumped in there. I put a YouTube video up on it. We were just having a good time. Like it wasn't a big deal. It was a fun game mode. I wanted to play the more serious game mode. I definitely could, but being able to do that was super cool. But all right, guys. So last thoughts, if anything, on Paragon the Overprime. Anything you want to get out there? Anything like that? Perfect. Well, let's switch on over to Ethereal. And really not much out of Ethereal this week, so we'll kind of cover it very briefly. Stunt, I know you've played Ethereal. You were a tester for a little while, if you're not still a tester. Wangle, I don't know how much you know about Ethereal, if anything, so I'm curious to hear.
I played the open weekend that they did recently.
Oh, perfect. Awesome.
Or I think I did the first day because I think I was moving, or I don't remember what was going on.
Awesome. That's perfect. So great. Then this will be a great conversation. So with both of you having played in the last test and have played the game, kind of what are your thoughts and feelings on Ethereal so far? And Wangle, we'll start with you.
I think there are cool ideas. I think part of I had a bit of issue, I think, with like, I mean, I only got a couple games in, to be honest,
Yeah.
and I didn't try the jungle, so I don't know how like all the rotating and any of the map objectives work and that kind of stuff. But when I was doing it, at some points I felt like there were too many buttons to keep track of, because you have like one more ability than a normal like MOBA, plus like a trinket that you take, plus like your class ability,
Mm-hmm.
plus like there were just so many like, and then you have like an item that you pick up at the beginning as well. Like there were so many things that it always felt like I wasn't pressing. Like I'd use maybe the same couple ones every single time, but the actual like playing the game, was fun for seeing how it was. I don't know. I'd like to, you know, sit down with it maybe a little bit more and see if there's like a long-term staying factor with it at the minute. And then the other thing that I'm a little bit worried for them is like kind of within the space, like how overloaded they're making the kits, like with not overloaded, but just with how many things they're adding to the kits. How how much diversity can you have with like future heroes going forward? And they probably have like a couple or a few in the back, like that are being made right now as we speak, that have like good and unique kits. But I feel like just with how much stuff you give every character, making the whole kit flow and combine together, like there's a little bit of a worry with me for like longevity, how many times like you can make that many abilities.
Yeah, absolutely. And the complexity is definitely something that everyone talks about at some point. And I mean that like the way you're saying the more buttons, the extra buttons, all that kind of stuff, right? It raises the floor of the game pretty drastically, because it's not just 4 buttons, a passive, and maybe an item or two. It's 6 mandatory button presses or 8 mandatory button presses to be most optimal with your character, which then gets kind of crazy very, very quickly, right? Even you see in other MOBAs that have active items, a lot of new players don't even worry about the active items, that they're kind of supplementary later on, right? So while they're extra button presses, it doesn't quite feel the same way because they're not directly part of the character.
Yeah. Yeah, there's like the class abilities and all that stuff, which I think some are much more interesting than others, to be fair.
To be sure.
There's like an imbalance in the usefulness of the class abilities, or like the ideas are cool, but like the one that like breaks walls, like I played it one game and I found myself, I think I broke one wall, and it's because I was like, oh, is this one of the breakable walls? Let me try it out. Maybe it would be different if I'd been playing like jungle or something, but like I think there's a lot of like cool ideas within the game, and it's just about like if they can execute them, I think.
Yeah.
At least for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And Stunt, I know you've been following Ethereal for a while and have played several tests, and like I said, we're a tester for a while. What are your kind of feelings on Ethereal right now?
Like I've said in before, people shouldn't sleep on Ethereal. The thing about Ethereal that I like the most is once this game is polished, once the game comes into early access, all that, when they hit that goal, um, this is the type of game where no matter how much experience you have in a MOBA, everybody's gonna be on the same playing field. You still have to learn, like Wangle said, the abilities. You have to learn the passives, get used to the extra buttons. Um, it's the type of game I think that you're not gonna have like a middle ground. You're either gonna have really good players or really bad players, because everyone's gonna start off at that ground zero and they have to learn everything as they go around. And from all of these games, I think this is the only game that the heroes are skill based. Every hero is skill based. It's, you don't. I can't think of a hero that's a lot easier to play than the next one. Each one you pick up, you have to have some. You have to show some skill or be able to have good aim or have, you know what I mean. Be quick with what decisions you make. Um, so it's fun. People shouldn't be sleeping on this game. I've said it from the beginning. Ethereal is different.
Yeah.
It's a new idea to the MOBA.
Yeah, I
genre.
think I'm just like I'm cautious on it. Again, like they're still like they're just doing an early access weekend, so I'm not gonna judge it too hard and just kind of go test by test and see what comes out. But
Yeah.
just like the ease of pickup and play. Like my first two games, I think I felt like I just didn't know what was happening. Like I was kind of pressing buttons, but it was like, and I got that many. I got maybe like 4 in the weekend.
Yeah.
So like the kind of easy pick up and play aspect, I don't know if it's there. I don't know if they want it to be there. But it's just about like if you get people to play the game, like giving them enough to keep them invested, to keep wanting to learn the game, like just giving them like a low enough level of being able to do something and having it turn out well and give them that positive feedback, that makes them want to be like, okay, I just did this really cool thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can I do it again? Can I do more with it? Like, and I think if they can do that, it could turn out to be pretty cool. But I don't know if it was quite there in that last test.
Yeah.
In my opinion, at
Yeah.
least.
I'm right there with you. I think something like new player onboarding and progression systems can definitely help motivate players to keep playing to the point that they do that switch clicks and they go like, oh, okay, I understand now, right? But as it was in this last test, I agree with you entirely that there's a little bit too much complexity to pick up and play and want to keep playing. Right? It's a game. I used to be on the dev team. I've played many hours of Ethereal over the last several years. Right. And so for me, I don't have that feeling anymore, but it's always interesting to hear players come into tests like this and see where they're at and that kind of stuff. And that's something that when I was on the team, I was talking to them about, of finding ways to simplify, not necessarily get rid of, but finding ways that we can do something similar, but make it less of a required button press, or less of something that the player needs to learn how to do, and more just something the player does more inherently or more naturally, which I think could help in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I like. Sorry, I completely lost what I was gonna say.
You're
I think
good.
the characters. I think, in my opinion, there was like not enough of like a general positive feedback loop in terms of like just doing like the basic thing gives you this much satisfaction. Like in Predecessor and Overprime, like you kill the minion and it makes that nice little sound, and that nice little sound, like if you just listen to that sound, it's like, I like that sound.
The dopamine hit you get from killing a minion. Yeah.
Yeah, just that like little gold jingle. It sounds good, it feels good. I don't think I had as much of that with Ethereal, like just the base positive feedback loop of like you did this basic kind of like something that's kind of, it doesn't, like you have to do it throughout the game. It's not a genuinely like fun activity like farming minions.
Yeah.
But then you make the player enjoy it by giving them like those little feedback loops. And I think the other kind of point with that is what the characters did. There were a couple of times that I'd be playing characters where I just didn't know what my button was doing. It was like, I did a thing and it played an animation and it obviously did something, but what did it do? I don't quite know. And when you don't really know what your thing did, then you don't get as much of that like positive feedback. Like if you do something and it goes like the ADC that has like the global snipe, like you do
Dante,
that, you get the kill, like that one's a really good ability for positive feedback. Like, but then there were a lot of characters in the game where they just had a button that was like a press this button and I swear it helps. And I was like, okay, I'll try it.
And there's an amount that I think the larger kits lend themselves to include more filler abilities. That's not really what I want to call them. It's the only thing I can think to call them right now, though. Where it is like it just modifies your next basic attack, where you don't really feel pressing the button doesn't feel good necessarily. Yes, it may give me 500 more damage per hit, but the button itself pressing doesn't do a lot. And I think that's where something that especially Paragon the Overprime and then Predecessor is showing increasing more and more of that that the button presses need to feel good, and
Yeah.
for players to really, really enjoy their time with those characters and wanting to continue their time in the game overall.
Yeah, and honestly, across the 3 games, like even though I'm not an Overprime player, I think Overprime probably has the best in terms of just like you press the button and at least from like a sound design aspect, I don't know
Yeah.
about like a feel aspect, but I have like issues with Pred's sound, and I know they just got a new audio guy, I think, so I'm hoping, or like like a senior audio designer or something, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping, but like when you go back and compare it to like OG Paragon, and you listen to like a bunch of the sounds in like the old game, even Overprime, like Paragon was like the gold standard. It was a AAA title made by Epic Games. Their sounds and feedback were amazing. It's why all of us fell in love with the game, like just how cool it looked, how like cool and epic a lot of things sounded. I think the one that always gets me going back is like how Sevarog used to sound when you'd get a stack. Like there was like a little screech to it. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
It's something that is kind of like missing from a lot of these games right now, and I think if any of them can kind of master that, it takes them to a whole new level.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think so. Last week I mentioned that I watched some Legacy gameplay and was like, how slow is this game? Like, it's wild to look at how like beyond slow Legacy was, especially compared to V42 and Monolith and all and beyond from there, and then especially compared to these games. But I think you're hitting the nail on the head of like, why did I love Legacy so much? It was because the feedback on button press was insane. Like it just was so good every single time that it made me want to keep playing slow or not. Like I didn't even realize it was slow because I was so invested in my button presses.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic note. Well, guys, any final thoughts on Ethereal? I guess each of you, what's the thing that you think would help Ethereal the most in their current state, that they're in these early access weekends? Like what is the thing that you would want them to add sooner than later that they're working on? And Stunt, we'll start with you.
I think if they polish out all their abilities, like Wangle said, bring in that satisfying sound, the effects and stuff like that. I know that Windu mentioned last week that at times he would ult and not know if he had killed the enemy hero or not. Once they polish all of that out, the game will speak for itself. It'll slowly fall into place, and from there on, they can move out. And I'm pretty sure the guys are working on it, but it's the biggest thing right now that most of the community complains about is not having that satisfaction of the abilities hitting or seeing some kind of reaction to how the game's played.
Yeah, and Wangle, what about you?
I mean, I've touched on a couple things, I guess, already. But just like, I think just, yeah, making sure that the buttons are good. Like, making sure that everything that you do in the game, like, feels good, I think is probably just, in my opinion, the most important thing, because if the gameplay feels good, then, like, this is kind of how I see it for, like, Predecessor. Like, if the gameplay feels good to the player, and pressing buttons in the game feels good, then you will just have people that play the game, no matter if there's absolutely no progression, no matter if, like, there are, like, a bunch of things missing from the game in terms of external whatever. Like, if you make the gameplay loop rewarding, then people will just play the game no matter what happens.
Yeah. Awesome, guys. Well, let's move on to Predecessor. Definitely the one that we've got the most to talk about this week across the 3 games, because we not only got Twin Blast releasing, which I can't wait to talk to you guys more about his release, what you're feeling on it, balance, the whole 9 yards. But we also got an interesting update from them regarding toxicity that they are adding in with the patch that Twin Blast dropped in, that they're adding in like AI chat moderation features, which reading the article on it was super cool. And I'm sitting there like, that's a great thing to have in there. Playing the game, I have not felt a single lick of difference. That it feels like people are just as toxic as before. So I'm curious, and I know it's going to be learning and all that kind of stuff, but I'm very curious to see like when that feeling switches. Maybe it's a slow and steady kind of thing that we'll see in a month's time, the biggest difference come from that compared to now. But overall, I'm interested to see how that's going to impact the game, the toxicity levels on it. But what about you guys? Have you guys noticed any toxicity changes in your games and Predecessor this week?
I will say I have already encountered people who are chat banned in the game, so
Okay.
so literally day one of the patch, I've encountered people that are chat banned. So I guess yes is the answer.
That's a good thing. I think the fact that that's happening, even if I haven't witnessed it, is fantastic. Like, it's only going to be better for the game to mute the people that deserve to be muted. And if it's an AI doing it, there's not even like a big brother overside of it. That is just like, it just happens. Like, you were just fit the qualifications to get chat muted, so you got chat muted. It wasn't an meta dev saying like, yeah, this guy gets muted, but that guy doesn't, right? There's none of that. It's pretty cut and dry, which I think is a good thing overall. What about you, Stunt?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good idea. It's a good way of taking a lot of stress off the devs. You know what I mean? Instead of wasting time and going around to look at footage to make sure it qualifies or not, AI does it for them. And you know that if somebody really wants to be toxic, they're gonna find ways to do it in chat by just spacing out the letters or whatever. And I've had conversations like this in our Overprime partners chat too, where people complain about toxicity, and I tell them, you can't expect the devs. It's impossible for them to put in AI that has all the combination of toxicity for them to be able to ban. You know, I mean, people are gonna find a way around it. As a player yourself, take it upon yourself and just mute them if you have to. Because a lot of the complaints we get is, oh, somebody was toxic and the AI didn't catch it. No, it's not the AI didn't catch it. People are finding ways around it.
Mm-hmm.
If you put spaces in between the letters, or if you abbreviate it, or whatever the case is, that toxicity is gonna pass. Now, I haven't experienced it yet with Predecessor. I only played a few games since vacation. But if I do experience it, I'll let you know how it feels. But the idea itself is great because the devs don't have to worry about that one little issue of people constantly spamming that this person said this or that person said that. Let AI just take care of it.
Yeah. And hopefully, like, with the whole like spacing out the letters and abbreviating stuff, like the whole point of a AI to do it is it'll learn to like catch those things. Like, it might not be doing it now, but as more games are played and more people are finding ways around it, then like hopefully it'll start to pick up on it and then start maybe moderating when people space them out and stuff, and then the community will kind of always have to adapt.
Well, that's...
Viking Jedi just had a really good point. Like, you might put JellyKnees as a in-game name in OP, and you might get banned or whatever the case is. It won't let you use the name, but people do use slurs and other toxic words, and it just flies by. And I think he has a good point saying that translation might be a situation too.
And that's something that I think the AI would be beneficial in as well, because being able to potentially just add some translation features into that AI for it to watch that kind of stuff, then you can moderate in multiple languages without needing necessarily to have a fluent speaker in that language to moderate the chats for you. So that's super helpful. And Windu even mentioned, like you were saying, getting smart, people learning around the AI, right? Is that he said someone called him a not smart person to avoid the bot, which, I mean, it's Windu, so I don't know how much that's the person's fault and more Windu's fault, but I agree that people are going to find a way around the systems. But honestly, I will take getting called not a smart person over like a dumbass any day of the week. Because one, I'll look at it and read it and be like, that guy was trying to get around the AI. And the other one, I'll be like, no, you're the dumbass, right? Like, go back into chat after him, right? So I if that's what it takes, fine. Like, at this point, I'm not sure I care that much.
If people have to do like kindergarten level insults, like, you're a poopy head in order to like say bad things about me in the game, I'm just gonna laugh at it every time. It's much better than actual other things.
If they have to put a space for SOB every time and waste 5 minutes just chatting with you or insulting you,
seriously,
by all means.
That's even like, I've seen other games, and maybe this is the route that they may go with this AI in the future too, is that like when you type in something like you're an idiot or something, it replaces it with like, I need a hug, right? And like in the chat message. So you know they said something, but you're just getting the response that whatever the game changed it to. And I think those are also incredible because I just laugh at those all the time too.
Like we did in fall.
Yeah, exactly.
We saw it in fall.
But so I'll read briefly kind of how they explained how this chat tool is going to work if you guys haven't read this. The AI tool is trained to recognize a huge list of words and phrases that we don't consider welcome in our game, including a wide range of threats, insults, slurs, and more. Each time the tool detects this kind of language, it'll automatically flag, log, and even take action based on the severity of the message. If the offense justifies a penalty, it will be applied automatically and immediately without the need for manual review. This does mean that some messages might be inappropriately or accidentally flagged, but the system will account for your chat history when deciding whether any action is needed. And I think that's a big thing for a lot of people too. Is like, great, sometimes you're tilted that day, you get into a game, somebody says something, and now you start firing back in chat, right? And you and this person are going back and forth. And it may go like, okay, Jelly's not usually toxic, so we'll give him a couple points, like make sure he is chat banned for 24 hours or whatever, right? But we're not going to outright just ban him out of the game. But other people that are consistent, it may ban them outright, which I think is a good system to have of this kind of like multi-strike rule, it almost seems like. But overall, I think this is a welcome change. I know a lot of the community, especially on Reddit, has been talking about how it doesn't feel like bans or mutes or anything are actually going into effect because they play with the same toxic people game after game. So this is, I think, a step in the right direction for Predecessor.
Yeah, and I think historically speaking, the Parazombie community has had a couple bad actors in terms of the toxicity and stuff.
Definitely.
I think the one that I heard about a lot that hurt Overprime was people that specifically targeted Weekend while he was playing the game, and made it really unfun for him, and so he stopped playing it. So I think any kind of way, especially while the community is so small and those bad actors have more of a say, keeping it kind of restrained and just so the health of the game is preserved and the games don't fall to like players leaving because toxic interactions, and then those toxic people having to, like, if they're in high MMR or mid MMR, like they're playing with more levels because there's less people, so the matchmaking has to put them, and then it kind of spreads.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's switch gears a little bit and talk about Twin Blast's release and kind of where we're feeling on all of that. And Stunt, I know you said you got a couple games of Twin Blast in. What are your feelings on Twin Blast so far?
Oh, he feels great. I like his kit. I do like how with his grenade, especially his right click, where you can bounce it off walls and still get damage, the AoE in it. The great thing about Predecessor is we've known this, that they're perfectionists when it comes to all of that. And I believe, if I'm not wrong, ever since the Revenant update, their character models have felt a lot smoother. Their character models have, and the fact that they're starting to get comfortable with changing kits and implementing a lot of these like new abilities that are different from, well, initially different a little bit from Paragon. It feels great. Like even Mori, I played a few games with Mori because Morigesh was a fun hero that I loved playing with back in Paragon days. She feels great. Like when you don't have that cone shape, you have the original like beehive that she throws and all of that, the whole 9 yards.
When you said Morigesh and she feels great, I saw Wangle get like a little smile on his face that the mid laner in him was just so excited.
She does. She feels great. It's a fun hero. And Twin Blast just the same.
Nuts.
Wangle, what are your kind of feelings on Twin Blast so far?
I think Twin Blast is probably like the start of I'd like to say them really committing to more skill expression in heroes.
Yes.
I think he is like just like having the whole kit kind of work together and kind of just flows in combat. Everything kind of makes sense with it. It might be overtuned right now, but just having to like think about every single button that you press instead of just pressing the buttons like you do with a lot of the characters in the game right now. I know just from interactions with the devs that like they know that there are issues with their previous character kits, but with just how early access is, they need to keep moving on and they can't go back and touch old characters.
Yeah.
And I think going from here on, we'll see a lot more characters that have really flowing kits that have a higher level of skill expression. At least I'd like to hope that. I have full faith in them to do that, and I think they've shown that they can do that with this character, and I'm hoping that we get the same thing with Lizard when he comes out next.
And I think that's a great point, is that, and I love, Twin Blast has always been my AD carry. I'm not an AD carry player by any stretch of the imagination, but when I played AD carry in Paragon, I played Twin Blast. When I played it in Fault, I played Twin Blast. When I played it in PTO, I played Twin Blast. Right? So getting Twin Blast finally in Predecessor, I'm like, yes, finally I can play ADC. And honestly, probably my favorite iteration of Twin Blast across all the games, including Paragon.
Yeah.
That like the double tap of his basic attacks all the time. It was weird at first and it took me a while to get used to, but I love it. I love how it feels. All the button presses are pretty good to feel. The ultimate's probably the one that I feel the least about, but overall, super fun character, super skill expressive, super smooth. I love the changes that they've made across the board. And overall, like I said, just a fun character. And I agree with you, Wangle, that it makes me more excited for Lizard than I was even for Kira, because of that smoothness and that skill expression that they've added to Twin Blast. Makes me hope and excited that we're going to get that kind of level from them out of Lizard when he comes out too.
Yeah, like... Yeah, there's so much I think that you can like do in this space, and I feel like they're not like, especially with Lizard, like they did their first original character with Kira. They're like, that was a success. Kira is a fun character. People play her all the time. She is probably the strongest ADC right now. But like, you know, they went with that. They were like, okay, let's do our own character. Let's do something that's cool, but not like super out of the box. And I think after they've done this Twin Blast thing where they changed his kit quite significantly, because he never really he got reworked 4 times in Paragon. Nobody really knew what to ever do with him. And for them to like get this positive of like a reaction from the community for what they did to him, I think they're going to be going into this Lizard release really confident with the blank slate that they had, because they can just do whatever they want with this new character.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, if some of the leaks, I won't go into the leaks themselves, but if some of the leaks we've heard about Lizard are true, I'm excited, because some of the characters that people have referenced from like League of Legends for Lizard are some of my favorite characters in the game. So if that's true, I'm big stoked on Lizard coming out next month. So yeah, super, super excited for that. And let's transition now into the FTM speedrun contest, which Wangle, I know you had a chance to get some runs in there, which I love. So Wangle, I don't think, are you on the list at all anymore, or did
Both
all of your
mine-
runs get
both
taken?
of mine got taken. I did a single Twin Blast run when nobody else had run Twin Blast, and I did a single Shinbi run when the speed run was like 18 minutes.
Yeah, Wangle took my Shinbi record when I just like was memeing with Shinbi on the game. And then, that got taken back pretty fast. 15:03 is the current Shinbi time. And then 12:21 for Twin Blast.
Though I will say, I was doing that just one night for like 40 minutes or something, like did just a couple runs. And I was in call with my team, and Tekken Kid is on my team. And you see him now, he was like watching me do it. He was like, hold on, what's the Kalari time? And now you look and he has like 6 records or something. Like,
yeah,
so even if I don't hold the records, I inspired Tekken to hold the records, and I'm gonna take full credit for that.
Yeah, and so if you guys don't know, For the Minions is currently hosting a speedrun contest through the end of season 2, so that'll be toward the end of August, and that the top 3 people that have the most first placed runs will get $100, $50, and $25 respectively. And that's just, you submit runs on here, and then the fastest time puts you in first place. So super cool. It's super great that Wangle's been running it and that he's inspired others to run it. Since we started this contest a little over a week ago, there have been 12 runners and over 100 runs submit on the leaderboard since in that week's time. So I'm super excited to see that. And it's starting to get pretty competitive on a couple of them. Murdoch, you guys were just watching the speed run for Murdoch. Murdoch's down to like 10 minutes. Yeah, 10 minutes and 42 seconds, which is just a wild time to put up there. And that's by Intharth, who manages the speedrun page. So he gets to see all the runs come through. He's learning all the strategies from every single person, which is super cool. But I love seeing all the interaction with these speed runs, and I can't wait to see like where we're at as more runs get added, and even Lizard gets added next month and may inspire a couple more people as well. So super, super cool. But that's going to wrap it up for that. But let's talk now, guys, about the Season 2 rewards that they announced this week. Did you guys have a chance to see this and look it over?
These things look sick. And,
the Fae and the Narbash?
Yeah, and then we will get a Sparrow skin, but we don't know what it looks like quite yet. Yeah, so for everyone that doesn't know in chat, this week they did announce their Season 2 rewards, the skins that they're going to get for people reaching certain level thresholds during the season. Level 20 is going to get this Ascended Narbash skin, which for recolor Narbash skins, this is probably my favorite so far. I think recolors on Narbash have always looked kind of meh, right? Like across, even back in Paragon days, they were always kind of like, oh great, he's blue, yay. Like, but this one, it does a good job of making him feel more unique, even though it is a recolor.
Yeah. For
level 30, you're going to get Ascended the Fae, which I love this skin. Like that's the gold, the whole trim across the board. Big fan of this skin. And then we're also going to get anyone that got to level 40 is going to get an Ascended Sparrow skin, which I assume will fit that white and gold aspect that we've seen in both Narbash and the Fae as well. We just don't know what the exact skin will look like. But Wangle, what are your kind of feelings on these rewards being announced before the end of Season 2?
Like, I think these are really cool skins. I think it's good to announce them like early, so people have enough time if they do care about these skins enough to like grind for them. I still have a personal I have an issue with how they do the kind of seasonal reward things, and that's probably just a UI issue, but there's no way in game for you to tell that there's anything. There's no dopamine, fill up the bar, you get the thing, like, and you know, hopefully once the new UI is done, we get something like that. I'd assume so. That's kind of one of the big things, but I'd like something in game to like manage these kind of rewards, like make it feel like you are playing for something rather than you kind of just play some games and you look and be like, oh, I'm level 35, it's cool. But yeah, I think the actual rewards are really cool. Even if most of these are just recolors, the Sparrow outline doesn't fully look like Sparrow to me, so I'm hoping there's something new with it. But either way, like, I'm really liking how these are looking, and yeah, it just makes me really excited for what kind of like original skins they eventually add to the game.
Yeah, and that's for me. I'm just under level 30, I think, going into the last month of Season 2. And it was the one thing, like I read this and went like, okay, I need to at least get level 30, but now it gave me more reason to grind to level 40 before the end of the season than I felt like I had before this announcement went out. And granted, I've gotten like 5 levels from those AI matches, speedruns that I've been trying to run. So a lot of my levels recently have come from that. But overall, I think it's a great way to give players the carrot on the stick that gets them to keep playing the game through the end of the season and through Lizard's release especially. And they did talk about that in the end of this post. So Season 2 will end with version 0.11 game update. So that's looking to be September 5th is when Season 2 is going to end, and Season 3 will begin exactly after that. So we should see that. And then they said with V10 and Lizard around the corner, we can start looking more into Season 3. So exciting times all around. It sounds like Lizard is going to come in the next big patch, which is super cool, and which theoretically means we're probably going to see some UI probably trickle in there with Lizard, but maybe that'll happen in the V11 patch before the end of the season. So we'll have to wait and see there.
Yeah, just gotta hope and wait, I guess.
Yep. And that's, I hope you're right that the dopamine bar exists in the UI when that change comes through, because even with other things missing, that would be a great way for them to keep players, again, the carrot on the stick, for players to realize what they're achieving goals toward, but also how they're achieving that at the same time.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff like that needs to be improved in Predecessor. Overprime has a bit better of it with like not having all the characters unlocked and having to grind whatever the in-game currency is, which Predecessor doesn't have at the minute,
Yep.
to unlock those. So just kind of any way that they can add something to make people want to play the game more, because right now it's just playing the game for the sake of playing the game, and it's not as much of a grab.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Stunt, what are your kind of feeling on these skins?
I love the Narbash skin a lot. I'm not a support at all. Like, I don't play support. But as for a recolor, it's a very nice skin.
Mhm.
It's very nice. But would I grind for it? I don't know. I mean, the only thing that prevents me from playing Predecessor is the slower pace of the game.
Mhm.
That's the only thing that if I sat here and said it had other issues, I would be completely lying. That's the only thing that holds me back from playing Predecessor as much and grinding it, is the slower gameplay and not really having like that competitive mode to it for you to grind for. But I would show off the skin for sure. I mean, their skins have been on point, even the recolored ones. Like, goes back to what I was saying. Since they were labeled as a perfectionist, you can see it in their work. I guess it's just the community, and what we want is a bit more, something out of their creative group to bring in into the game.
yeah, and I think what they were saying is hopefully after the UI things speed up. But like the way that they were having to develop it was they would have to make patches for the UI version and the non-new UI version of the game, and that was greatly decreasing the speed at which they could do updates. And so they kind of like, we're in this period right now where they're like, we're developing much quicker for the UI version of the game, but we're not quite, like, it's not done yet, so the normal version of the game is going to be slower for now. But then hopefully once that UI is in, it gives them the tools and the base, and they only have to develop for like that one version of the game, and then they can kind of like ramp it up from there.
Yeah,
is what my hopes are for it.
And
I think that's what Robbie was saying on the Predcast a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I think, and the thing is that the community, like, for us gamers who've been around the genre for a long time, we do understand the fact that this is their first the first game. The company is like, it's their first game, it's an indie company and all of that. For us, we understand it. For the community is, oh, why UI? When RGSA was talking on Predcast, I do agree with him. If he wants to push out console and he wants and UI is a must for that, it's the correct move. You do put some stuff aside to better your UI so you can hit that minimum requirement for console release. But it doesn't just come down to like the handful of us who understand what goes into making a game. It's the community that complains and gives the issues.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I think the thing that I think a lot of the community is really riding on this UI update to be the catalyst for more consistent content and feature updates going forward. Right. And partly because that's what they've told us, is that the UI is the thing holding up a lot of those things. So when that once the UI drops, then they'll be able to move faster on a lot of these other projects that they're working on, whether it be content or full on feature updates like progression systems, mastery systems, the whole 9 yards. Right. And so I think it'll be interesting to watch what happens after the fact. I hope that that is true, that they can kind of crank out content and features after the fact. But I worry that if they can't, what is the community going to latch on to then? Right. The UI is kind of the life raft in a storm right now for the community of like, okay, once the UI, then we can get all these content feature updates and console can come out and all of these other things. When that life raft goes away, if they don't fix it or do something else, then I have concerns for what the community may do after the fact.
This subject might be a little bit off the topic. Sorry for cutting it off, Wangle. But the way I see it too is talking about the community. what the community also doesn't realize that whether you like PTO or whether you like Pred, it doesn't matter what game you like to play. One cannot exist without the other. And the reason I'm saying this is it's a healthy competition. For example, the best example I can give you is when Overprime came out without controller support. What's the first thing that Pred targeted? Controller players, and the community is going to get the best out of both these companies, and the community is going to get what they want as long as both of them survive. So when I do see toxic relationship between like the community going into Overprime and talking shit initially, and then coming back to Pred, and Overprime players coming to Pred and talking shit, like did that, all of that needs to stop, because if you monetize it to one company, no one from the community is going to get what they want. It's just life. That's how it works, and that's what the community needs to understand is let these companies do what they're doing. It's a healthy competition. Let them give the community what's needed. Stop pushing these devs, like putting all this stress on them, because they're not going to cater to each and every one of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm seeing a couple people in the chat being like, it's kind of like hope and wait and for Predecessor, and like we don't know how quickly things are going to be coming. I know they want to redo the scoreboard. I know they want to redo like the item shop. I know they want to like redo a lot of things that probably will come after the UI. But like the thing that I want to kind of address with the everyone being like hope and wait, like it's an early access game. It is their first game. It's um, like it's in early access. It means the devs aren't happy with how the game is, and they want to change a lot of things for it. And there's a reason that there's like a paid barrier to entry. It's like if you care that much about the game and you want to play it right now, if you're like me and you like really like the gameplay and the feedback of it, go on ahead right now. Game dev is not a linear process. I know Jelly can probably attest to this, having worked at a studio. Things kind of just get pushed back all the time. Like something random will happen. You'll go in to work one morning, and then all of a sudden, like one of the new builds just isn't working. Someone made one change, and it ruined like everything. You'd have to take a day to see that. Like things just kind of happen in the game dev industry, and I don't think people like understand it enough. I definitely didn't understand it enough until I started working in it, and like seeing it for myself. But like they are working on all these things, and once they go, like I think the ultimate test, like people have paid for the game, and I think it gives them like a sense of entitlement, and it kind of makes me regret that they released the game. Like I've had a lot of fun playing it, but at the same time, like having people pay for the game makes them feel like I paid for a finished product, like I want a finished product now. It's not that. And it's probably it might have been a mistake in hindsight. I don't fully know. But just like staying patient or like having belief in the devs. And if you don't, like come back when the game is like early access. It might be a rough patch while everyone leaves. It is what it is, but I'm kind of like I believe in the long-term value of the project, and that's why I bought into it. Is how I see it.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing is that things, like you said, you may come in one day and the whole project is busted because one of the programmers added a comma where they weren't supposed to, or whatever it may be, right? An artist pushed an asset that for whatever reason broke the game. So absolutely. But I think a lot of that comes down to how the company responds to those problems, both internally and externally. If it's an internal thing, then you can be a little different about it. But when it starts affecting the external and affecting the community, then there's some communication aspects that have to be followed through with that. And that I think as of recently, they've been doing a good job on those communication aspects, and we'll have to wait and see how that trend continues for post the UI update, when a lot of those systems and all that are more expected to come faster, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it.
Yeah, and hopefully like the new community manager helps in that aspect in terms of just being able to like stay with the community and update them.
Yeah.
them being an indie company, I kind of wish that there was like a little bit more communication, but you never know what kind of things that they're contractually obligated. I know like the company I work at wants to do like dev blogs and show them cool things that they're working on, but then they can't because of who we're working with. So it is like you never know what's going on behind this. Like even people within the company might not fully know what's going on and why certain things are why they are.
Yeah.
But like in the end, it's just we see what we see from the outside, and there's a lot of things going on in the background, and it might be frustrating, and that's completely understandable. So.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, so some final questions for Predecessor before we wrap up the show. What are the things, and this is for both of you, what are the things that keep you coming back to Predecessor? What is there a thing that you can quantify? Is it the game as a whole? What is the driving thing to keep you coming back while we don't have a lot of those progression systems in the game right now? Wangle, we'll start with you.
For me, a lot of it is like kind of how I interact with the community, both playing on Rogue with like a couple really good friends of mine. Like I met them through the game, and we just end up like a lot of people get onto teams, and then they might not like the teammates, but they want to win things. Our team just kind of is full vibes. I don't know. So just being like able to hang out with friends and play the game is really fun for me, and playing the comp setting does add that like the missing kind of dopamine boost that ranked would give that isn't in the game right now. And also just my enjoyment for the game and interacting with the community and talking about the game makes me like enjoy streaming it, having people come in, talk to me about like just things. Yeah, just basically talking about the game with people is really fun, and that's even what it is for me.
Yeah, I was in your stream last night and we started talking about Grux, the Grux guy on Reddit, and I love that man so much. I will defend him with my life. That he's been on YouTube videos now. He came into one of my YouTube videos and commented Grux, and I was like, yes. I
found his Discord. I was in a Discord and I saw him join it, and I was like, no way, the Grux guy is in here.
So that's been super cool for me too. But Stunt, what's the thing? I know you play primarily Paragon the Overprime, but what kind of gets you coming back to Predecessor every once in a while?
It's the closest to the original Paragon feel. I do like the map. I was always a fan of this map, the monolith map, but I know that a lot of the community and stuff that don't like it, but it's that Paragon feel, right? If I don't want to if I'm not gonna play Overprime that day or fast action, I'll jump in and get like that nostalgia out of my system, play games. I do get excited when I see them posting about hero releases, because I want to see the creative end of what's happening. For example, Overprime doesn't have Morgesh. Morgesh was a favorite of mine, and she feels great in Predecessor, so I'll jump in and play a few games. Twin Blast's new kid, I enjoy the hell out of it. I didn't play Twin Blast much before, but he's a fun hero that's gonna get me to come back and once in a while jump into games. And I think it's the friends, like jumping in with Bearded, you, Windu, like that's what brings me back.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Just saying, hey, what's up, guys? I'm gonna jump in and just team up and play with you guys, and that's what brings me back to the game a lot.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think for me, even though I have disagreements with some of the community sometimes, the community is the thing that keeps me coming back to Predecessor more than anything else. And that includes like you were saying, Stunt, of playing with Bearded and Windu and all that kind of stuff, right? I jumped into their creator event for Twin Blast this week, and that was super, super fun to be around. Even their meme competition, I keep seeing the memes pop up on Reddit and Twitter and all those places, and it's super good. I think there are some extremes of the community on both sides, but I think there is a good chunk of the community that is there to have a good time. And when that side of the community comes out, I think it's a super great, fun area to be participating in overall. And then what do you guys think for Predecessor in its current state? I know there's a lot of stuff coming, a lot of stuff planned to come, all that kind of stuff, but for Predecessor in its current state, what is kind of the competitive advantage that you guys think it has over PTO, Smite, League of Legends, all those? Like what should bring players in to this game comparatively to others? And Stunt, we'll start with you this time.
I think their attention to detail, first of all, their attention to what they're putting into the game. But like we mentioned before, they were known for a long time, and still now to be perfectionist. I remember the first FTM you guys did when the game went into early access. You said the hardest challenges that Omega has is keeping that perfectionist name because it's tough to do. And I'm also looking forward to their original heroes in the future, right? It's going to change a lot. Like, for example, Smite, it might be creative heroes, but these, like, they're gods from history. They're stuff you've read in history and books and stuff like that. So bringing in these newer heroes or bringing in heroes that Omega created themselves can be a turning point for the game, and it could be a turning point for any of these para-zombies. I think that's the advantages that both these para-zombies are gonna have, is when they start incorporating their own heroes, is when it's gonna show what the company's capable of doing a lot more than what they've already done.
Yeah. And Wangle, what about you?
I think, like, within the space, the comparison is like Pred versus Smite, kind of. Like, there are going to be people that, maybe don't have the hardware to run it that can run League, so they're going to stay with League. Like, League is just super accessible in terms of basically anything can run League of Legends. So, or, like, maybe people can't aim, but it's easier from, like, a top-down perspective to, like, see and realize everything. So you're not going to take everyone from other communities, but, like, the easiest one is probably from Smite, and having that third-person aspect, being on UE5, it looks way better because Smite's on, like, UE3.
Yeah,
I don't
UE3.
know how it's still on UE3, like, at least be on UE4. It doesn't
They
make sense
must
to
be
me.
creating their own, like, Unreal Engine patches to keep the game running at this point.
Yeah, I genuinely don't know how you're still on UE3 in this kind of day and age. We're 2 engines later, but okay.
Seriously.
But, like, just if they can make the characters cool and interesting and add more content, because Smite has all the systems in place right now, and they have much more characters and stuff, so I think it's kind of a time thing. If they end up beating Smite, it would be kind of an overtime thing of, like, are the characters that they make long term more interesting than Smite? Like, will they get up to enough characters that people from Smite are like, okay, now there's enough characters, I want to come over, and, like, there's enough depth to the game and all that. So, but just the basis of the game being a third-person MOBA, and it is more of a MOBA than Overprime. Overprime being a third-person, like, action shooter with MOBA elements makes it really interesting for people that like action shooters, maybe want a little bit more for it. Predecessor is, like, directly for the MOBA field, I think, but can also have a little bit of, like, I mean, it's kind of what happened to a lot of us with Paragon, right? Like, I know a lot of people that played Paragon, it was their first ever MOBA. It's because, like, I played, like, Titanfall before that, or Overwatch, and it was very similar, and like, it's a shooter, it makes sense in my head, I'm used to the 3D space, I'm used to shooting things, and but there's, like, an extra level to it that I have to think about, which is really cool for people like me. I like to think a lot about the games that I play and that, so
yeah,
being able to pull people from that kind of audience as well, I think is really cool.
I think
Eventually Unreal Engine 3 is not going to pull it. Smite
Dude.
has to spend some money and go to Unreal Engine 5 somehow, I guess. And it's not
Gotta
just
be.
a tweak.
It's that the thing. That's the thing for me for Smite that tells me that they're on their way out, right? They may have they've dominated the space for many years in terms of 3D MOBAs specifically, right? They're nowhere near League of Legends or Dota numbers by any stretch, but they've dominated the 3D MOBA space even while Paragon was alive. right? That was Smite and Paragon were the two names. Paragon died out, and now everyone is back onto Smite. That I think Smite's lackadaisical approach to future-proofing themselves has been really beneficial for them the last several years. But the second any of these games, not even just Predecessor, but any of these games become a real competitor and a real threat to Smite, could be the end of them if they don't figure it out quickly, because they are becoming very dated very quickly. I mean, Unreal Engine 3 at this point, Unreal Engine 3 came out, I want to say 10 years ago, something like that, 15 years ago, maybe.
And let me see how old I was to make everyone in the chat feel old.
So, my understanding, Unreal Engine, the regular Paragon was Unreal Engine 4, correct?
Yes, it was on Unreal Engine 4.
So going from Unreal Engine 4 to Unreal Engine 5, and Wangle might be able to answer this. Going from Unreal Engine 4 to 5, you need a little bit of tweaking to get these characters to move, if I'm not mistaken. Because from my understanding, Unreal Engine 5 is supposed to be more dev friendly.
Oh yeah,
based off of a lot of the updates and a lot of the character modeling and the movement and everything.
Yeah.
So going from 3 to 5 is gonna cost either a lot of money or you're gonna scrap the whole thing.
They may as well release Smite 2 at that point.
Yeah, there was that couple month period of time in between like stress tests where Predecessor went down and they like moved from UE4 to UE5, and the amount of things that were broken in that amount of time was like just moving over, like half the game broke. It was wild, like how many bugs just popped up. And it took them a while to like actually move over, and then once they moved over, just things were broken. The game was like the game was unplayable during that period where they just didn't have. I'm in internal testing for Predecessor, by the way. I've done it for about 2.5 years now. Just for clarification, if I didn't add that in earlier on what I'm talking about, but like, yeah, like there were so many things broken with the game that it didn't really, like, they had to do so much work to fix it. And so moving from UE3 to UE5, it just seems to be like a major problem that they have. Like,
so it is a lot more work from UE4 to UE5 than a little bit of tweaking. I thought the engines were close enough where a little bit of tweaking would be easier.
So it depends on which version of UE4 you're coming from. If you're coming from 4.26 or 4.27, they did do a lot of work in those two to make it easier to go to UE5. But if you were on earlier versions, then a lot of the stuff, I mean, basically 4.26 and 4.27, from my understanding, was basically like UE5 light, right? So moving to UE5 afterwards was a lot easier. But anything earlier than that, there are so many systems that were changed from 4.25 and before to 4.26 and 4.27 that there's a lot more work. So it would depend on where Predecessor was version-wise before the transition. That would help or hurt them accordingly.
Yeah, and I think there was what's it called? Sorry, they like did some tweaks to like their version of the engine for the game to allow themselves the room to make cool things going forwards. I'm not gonna I don't know most of the details. I just know that they had mentioned to us they're not running on like base UE5. They have some things that they added to the engine, which is also why it took so long for them to move over, because they wanted to give themselves like the ability to have really cool things in the future that they didn't have the ability to do on the old engine. So I think like them just giving themselves the opportunity to do really cool, interesting, unique things with the game, like they future-proof themselves really well in that aspect. Like they're not a company that's thinking about like right now, right here. They don't like. That's one thing that's always impressed me about Omeda is like, no matter what state the game's in, they're not like obsessed with right here, right now.
Yeah. And before we move on, I looked it up. Unreal Engine 3. The first games on Unreal Engine 3 came out in 2006. So
Jesus.
a little bit ago.
I was 3 years old.
There we go. Perfect,
3?
Wangle.
I just graduated high school 1 year.
But yeah, so it's been UE3's been out for a little while.
A little bit.
But let's move on with Predecessor and kind of final thoughts from both of you on what are the things that you would, I know there are a lot of things coming down the pipeline, right? But what is the like a thing that you guys would want them to add that would make your experience better in Predecessor? I know you both have kind of touched on a few things already. Stunt, we'll start with you.
I guess replay mode and competitive for something to grind. For the replay mode, once they're fully incorporated, right, makes it easier for content creators to do to make their content, and also for teaching purposes, right? If you're playing with a certain team and all of that, and I guess competitive, to have a fully incorporated competitive mode.
So they have the replay system in there now. What would you want them to add or change to make it better in that?
The one, if I haven't used it, so I don't know. Does it go back the full game? Like, can you do a free camera and all of that? Then I take that back because I haven't tested it out. I know that some of the community was saying there was problems with it, but I haven't personally used it.
I think the key bindings of like how to get places on the map are a little janky, but overall it's a good first start for the replay mode. And then Wangle, what about you? What are the things that you would want them to add to make your experience better?
Give me more dopamine hits for playing the game. I already played this game way too much. Just give me something to play for, man. I was telling you guys before we got on the show, I did like 10 hours yesterday on stream and then still played for a couple games afterwards. It's just give me something to unlock that's not like the overall season thing. I think I'm at level 80 or something. I hit the 40 mark a while ago.
I'll just give you my Steam account. You can play on my Steam account, Wangle, anytime you want. Let me know and we'll figure it out.
I wouldn't do that. Don't give me the power to. I'll probably run it down just to...
That's true. Wait, hang on. Let me make a different account first.
Yeah.
Awesome.
If people think it's you, I will run it down. Just don't give me the options to it.
So I think for me, I'm going to piggyback off Wangle in this one because we've talked about it a lot. The dopamine hits, better button press feel, better overall reactions to things, whether it be sound, the actual ability itself, or the animations that are happening when I press a button. I want those to be much more fleshed out and much more good feeling, similar to like we said with PTO. PTO is probably the best of these games that has done that so far, similar to that, because that's part of what I love about PTO is that feel and feedback on button presses. But guys, that's gonna end it for FTM today. Let's do our outros. We'll start with Stunt and go to Wangle again. Stunt, where can people find you? What's the best places, and any last comments you have?
Twitch, like I said, Twitch, Kick, because we're still doing the transaction, and YouTube, Stunt_V for everything. Also, those PTO players that wanted like a competitive edge, we do have that overpowered league that Ego set up. It's almost like a seasonal thing. It's not just 3 days of tournament gameplay and that's it. So you'll catch a lot of us players there with our own teams playing and having fun. He tries to put out 3 or 4 games a week. So if you guys want to catch us there, if you guys want something fast like that, you have Overpowered.
Awesome. And Wangle, what about you?
Just find me at Twitch. I'm if you're in a Discord server for Predecessor, I'm probably in it. Just yeah, I'm kind of everywhere, but go to my Twitch. I'm Wangle, and if anyone is going to be watching the PCC, which I think the play-ins are in a couple weeks, I think in August, support Team Rogue. I'm the mid laner for them, so yeah, that's all I ask.
Awesome. Well, guys, if you want to join For the Minions in the future, Wangle reached out to me a couple weeks ago and asked if we needed any hosts. I brought him on the show. If you guys want to be on the show, more than welcome. Shoot me a message on Discord and we'll figure out when is a good time. Regardless of which game you play, we'll figure it on out. And if you haven't done anything for the speedrun competition for Predecessor, I would love to see more people running that. If you need any help or have any questions about it, feel free to reach out to me as well. If you're on Twitch, go subscribe to my YouTube. If you're on YouTube watching this, go subscribe now. And that's going to be it for the Minions this week. Thank you again, Stunt and Wangle, for joining me. I love loved having you guys on here. The insights you could provide.
Yeah.
There we go. But that is going to be it. And I wish you guys all the best. Have a great night.